Hello, I'm Ryan Scott Douglas and welcome to the January window with talkSPORT and talkSPORT Bet. I'm here with two former managers who know exactly what it takes to come out on top during a transfer window. It is Alan Pardew and Ali McCoist. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be here.
Good to be here.
And we can't talk transfers without talkSPORT's very own transfer guru, chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Alex, it's a busy time of year for you, isn't it?
Yeah, good to be here. It's been manic so far. I'm expecting that to continue all the way through until February the 1st, but we love it.
We love it. We absolutely love it. Right, before we jump in, Ali, are you expecting it to be a busy January transfer window?
I think inevitably it'll be a really busy transfer window. In fact, I was just checking, and I think last year the top flight in England spent twice as much money as the other five leagues in other top five leagues in Europe, which I thought was an incredible statistic. Will it be the same again? I'm not so sure, but there'll certainly be a big spending spree, I think.
OK. And Alan, there must be a lot of pressure on managers during this time of year. Yes, you want to recruit, you want to bolster your own ranks, but it's all about keeping your own top talent as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, you don't want the door, being knocked down. There's usually some point in the January window where someone surprisingly knocks on the door, says, Gaffer, I want to go. Usually your best player. But 9 times out of 10, a lot of the young players you've got to move on as well. So for managers, it's really busy time. You're trying to juggle the balls. You're trying to keep the crust of your squad together, and also keeping the harmony in the dressing room, which is not always easy, as you'd imagine.
I can't imagine. Right, guys. Well, let's not waste any more time and spin that transfer rumour wheel. Don't forget all transfer specials. Visit www.talksportbet.com, 18 plus begambleaware.org, and please gamble responsibly. We're starting off in Manchester, Crookie. Let's start with, our mob, Manchester United. Who are the names being linked to and from Old Trafford?
A motley crew, I think, more than a mob over the course of this season. But it's going to be fascinating, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe has got his hands on the steering wheel now. It's his 25% investment is not fully ratified, but he's been to Carrington, he's been to Old Trafford. He's going to have the final say on what they do, not just in terms of Erik ten Hag, but in terms of transfers as well. Will they spend big in this window? I'm not convinced because they're out of Europe. They're not going to make the top 4 in the Premier League. It's really just the FA Cup to play for. So I think they're going to be creative. Some of the names that have been mentioned in terms of potential incomings, Maxim Choupo-Moting, formerly of Stoke City, and Michael Elise, although I think that's probably a longer-term deal, maybe one to look at in the summer. They're the names that could be coming into Manchester United. And then you look at the outgoings, Jadon Sancho off to Borussia Dortmund. Mason Greenwood, we know, is out on loan at Getafe, but he's attracting interest from some top clubs in La Liga. Donny van de Beeker's gone. Sergio Reguilon has been sent back to Spurs. And could Raphael Varane be out the door in January because his contract is up in the summer and Manchester United are not planning on taking up the year's option?
When you look at United, if you actually look at it logically and say to them, what can they achieve this year? So why do we really need to go big this year? So Jim and Dave Brailsford might be looking at it and just look, let's just clear the decks a little bit, move a few on, and let's really do our work in the summer when the prices are better, the opportunity is better, and you have release clauses that are available. So I personally think they're going to stick.
Yeah,
I think it's a great point. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's a great point. I think, as I said, I think Manchester United are needing a massive transformation in the squad, and this might be the window where they actually could get rid of more than they bring in, and I think that might actually suit them longer term.
Well, that leads on to my next question. You mentioned some big outgoings there, Jadon Sancho being one of them. I mean, what do you make of that situation? Is this good for him to have that loan and go to potentially... It's Dortmund, you said, was it?
And I think what's fascinating here is, as we understand it, there isn't going to be an option to make the transfer permanent at the end of the season. So it's a straightforward 6-month loan at this stage. Now, does that suggest that maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Dave Brailsford, who Pards mentioned there, are they taking a look at Erik ten Hag between now and the end of the season? Are they deciding if this is the manager to take Manchester United forward and to oversee this rebuild that they want to undertake? Because if that is the case, then there isn't any room for Sancho, because that spat isn't going to go away. Sancho is still refusing to apologise. I think that's quite telling. But actually, it's only a straight loan deal. I think all the pressure is on Erik ten Hag to prove that he can turn around what's been a dismal season so far. And it comes back to the January spending. Are you really going to invest in a manager if you're not entirely convinced if he'll still be there come the summer?
Yeah, I think the problem the manager has there, he's going to have Dave Brailsford almost shadowing him for a while, you know, checking him out. And one thing that you know with the historical career that he's had, Dave Brailsford, in other sports, is that he's going to want the process to be in place. He's going to want to see everything is right on that training ground. And obviously they've had some issues, as we know.
Yeah.
Jurgen Sancho is one of those. So moving him on makes sense. The value to him, I don't know what that transfer was, 78 million or whatever it was. He brought him in. You probably know crooked the figures better than me.
I think.
73.
Wow.
You know, that's a huge investment to lose. So they're going to try and protect that. And a loan, I think, makes sense.
Yeah, Crookie, you mentioned Varane. I mean, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Is it injuries that potentially motivating them to get him out the door, or?
I think so, and I think there's an emphasis as well on reducing the wage bill. He is one of United's top earners. He has had a lot of injury problems, but that shouldn't be a surprise because he's had injury problems wherever he's been in his career. When he was signed, it was dressed up as a contract until the summer of 2025, when actually it turns out it's a contract until the end of this season with the extra year's option. United have decided not to take up that year's option. They would still like Varane to stay, but on dramatically reduced wages. Not sure he's going to be particularly keen to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when he come in, his reputation was sky high. To sign him was the right move. It seemed like a real nailed-on thing for Man United, but it just hasn't worked out. So I think the process of what they're going through, let's just keep him here maybe until the summer and make a decision. Because that signing on, you know, the re-signing of that contract probably has some sort of option that they could take up if they wanted to.
Well, it does, but they've decided not to activate that year's option. They'd have had to do it by
now, though.
New
Oh, they
Year's
have to-
Day.
And I would
Okay,
imagine one of the reasons for that is because of lack of perhaps game time
And the wages.
and levels of fitness and wages. And Alan will tell you, the one thing you've got to do when you're making any signing, it doesn't matter whether it's the January window, summer, any time, the first thing, one of the first things you would do as a manager is whoever you're signing, do they turn up for their work?
Yeah. Let's cross over to the champions, Crookie. Who are the blue side of Manchester looking at in this window?
Well, it probably tells you exactly where the two Manchester clubs are at. The fact that Man City aren't, I don't think, going to do too much business in this January transfer window. They've got quite a settled side. I think they're probably still favourites as we sit here now to win a fourth successive Premier League title. One player who they will sign is Claudio Echeverri. He's a young player from Argentina. From River Plate, so following the same career path as Julian Alvarez, but he'll be loaned straight back to River Plate, at least until the summer, if not until the end of the year. Lucas Paquetá is a player who's still very much on their radar. This deal was very close to happening in the summer transfer window. Didn't quite happen in the end, but they've never really gone away. They signed Nunez instead from Wolves, and I think Paquetá is a much better player.
Yeah.
West Ham obviously would be loathed to lose him in this window, but certainly one to keep an eye on in the next few weeks and months. And of course, the big outgoing from City, Calvin Phillips. But at the moment, City's demands in terms of a big loan fee and an obligation to buy for a similar price to what they paid Leeds is proving prohibitive for a lot of clubs, particularly Newcastle, who are right up against the FFP line.
Yeah, well, that is interesting because with City, I think it's best to start with the outgoing. Calvin Phillips, guys, what do you make of the situation? There's still a player there, isn't there, Ali?
Oh, there's a player there. And obviously he's got to think about the Euros coming up as well, although the one thing you say about Gareth is he's extremely loyal to boys in his squad that have done well, so maybe that's not just as major a factor as you would think, but he's got to get playing. And I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen a manager show somebody as much that they're not really going to be part of their plans, to be honest with you. He's played, I don't know, 3 or 4 players, played fullbacks in that midfield position as well when Rodri's not been there. I feel for the lad, to be honest with you. I just think he's got to go and get playing again. Personally, I think Newcastle would be a terrific move for him.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I understand what City are doing, trying to get the money back that they paid Leeds for them. However, the argument against that would be, we can't remember what he looked like, never mind what he played like. So why can you expect the same money? But listen, they're well within their rights to hang on to the player. He's under contract. But from his point of view, I just think he's got to get playing.
Well, with that being said, let's give the transfer rumour wheel another spin. Okay, over to North London then. Crookie, let's start with Arsenal. It could be a really busy window for the Gunners, couldn't it?
I think Arsenal fans are hoping so. They know they've got themselves into a really good position, despite their festive results, to challenge for that first Premier League title in 2 decades. But I think the common consensus is they're probably still a number 9 short of doing that. The obvious name on everybody's lips when it comes to that central striker position is Ivan Toney. back with Brentford, able to play again from January the 20th. It's going to take an astronomical bid to get Tony out of Brentford this transfer window, anywhere between 80 and 100 million pounds. Douglas Luiz is another player that we know Arsenal have a long-standing interest in, but I don't see Aston Villa, given that they're going for the top four, allowing one of their key players to depart. Amadou Onana is one to keep an eye on. Done really well at Everton this season. Again, Mikel Arteta, a big fan. And then you look at the left-back position, which we're told is one that Arteta is targeting in this window. A couple of mentions for Miguel Gutierrez, who's part of the Girona team that have gone right to the top of La Liga. And then a young player from Ajax as well, Gerald Hato, although again, that might be one that has to wait until the summer.
Oh, gosh. Well, we had a poll running on talkSPORT's X account asking where Arsenal need to strengthen most in the January transfer window. Up front, out wide, midfield or defence, with a massive 77.9% of the vote. Up front is where you guys said the Gunners need to strengthen in January. So, Ali, is Ivan Toney the man to lead Arsenal to glory?
Ivan Toney, for me, is exactly what Arsenal need. A proper out-and-out centre-forward, aggressive, he can drop off if you want and he can play, but in the box, scores goals. Osimhen's another one at Napoli who I actually, he's my number one. Big fan of him. But
yeah,
if you're asking me if Arsenal, beg your pardon, should go and break the bank for Ivan Toney, yes.
Ali, what do they do with Nketiah? That's another problem there.
I like Nketiah. I don't think he's going to win your league though. I think he'll score goals and I think he'll chip in with a fair amount. But if you're talking about Arsenal wanting to win the league, I don't think they're going to do it with Eddie Nketiah as their number 9. As harsh as that may sound, Arsenal don't have MD right now, I think, that you can say bang, bang, he's going to get you 15, 20, 25. As I say, Nketiah, will he score goals? Yes. Jesus, will he score goals? Yeah, but not as many as you need. That's the problem.
Also, will Ivan Toney not feel that he owes a debt to Brentford, that he needs to come back and play for them and help keep them in the division? Because after all, they're the ones who've taken him from an EFL striker into the Premier League.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, but no. No.
Strikers are selfish by nature, aren't they?
That word loyalty is difficult to spell for players.
Well, that moves us swiftly on to outgoings. And, I mean, there's a glaringly obvious outgoing here for me, which is Ramsdale. Crookie, what do you know about the situation there?
I don't think he'll go in January. I think he'd love to because, again, like Calvin Phillips, there's a Euros on the horizon. I think at one stage when he was playing for Arsenal, he felt he could even challenge Jordan Pickford to be England's number 1. I think that would have been difficult because you've said it already that Gareth Southgate is loyal to certain players and Pickford's never let England down. But I think it'd be really risky for Arsenal, despite the fact there'll be suitors. We know that both Chelsea and Newcastle are keen to sign a goalkeeper. But if Arsenal were to let Ramsdale go and then David Raya was to pick up an injury, I think they'd leave themselves really short. So I don't see it happening. I think he's going to have to suck it up, Ramsdale, until the end of the season and then probably go for big money in the summer.
Yeah. Any other noteworthy outgoings for Arsenal?
Well, I think if they're going to bring anybody in, that they might have to be a little bit creative in terms of trimming that squad. Mohamed El Neni has got interest from Turkey and from Saudi Arabia. I don't see a scenario where Arsenal stand in his way. Thomas Partey, I think, is another player that if there is Saudi interest, they may cash in on just because of the number of injuries that he's picked up and the chance to trim the wage bill. And I wonder about Emil Smith-Rowe, who didn't start a single game, I don't think, in the Premier League last season. Again, has been in fits and starts this season. Aston Villa certainly have an interest in him, and they won't be the only club. If they could rake in £25 million by selling Smith-Rowe and then reinvest that either in another midfielder or a left-back, would that possibly be sensible business? Would it be one of those rare deals that works out best for all concerned?
I genuinely feel that he's one of a great talent, actually.
I do.
You know, when you look at the Premier League managers, would they all be interested in him other than the top 3 or 4? For sure. So, yeah, I think there would be good interest and you get good value for him in this window. So that is a possibility, I think.
So just going back to Ramsdale a second, potential move then in the summer, but where could he go? Like, you know, Well,
the summer, I think there'll be a list of clubs would take him. But getting back to what Crookie said, I don't think there's any way that Arteta can take the gamble and letting him go. I mean, if Raya gets injured, I feel sorry for Ramsdale because to contradict what I said about Gareth showing loyalty to players that haven't been playing, I don't know whether Alan agrees. I think the goalkeeper's completely different in that position. Well, it is completely different. We know that. And a goalkeeper not playing, I think, is a slightly bigger problem. There's somebody else not playing that you can trust. But the problem with Ramsdale is, much as he'll want to probably go somewhere alone to get into the England team for the Euros, I cannot see. Arteta has to look at after Arsenal's. That's his, his best interest.
Yeah.
His
And
best
look after himself, by the way.
Absolutely.
So, with your manager's hat on, there's no way he's moving.
No.
Trust me, no way. And I would say, because why would Arteta put pressure on himself?
Dominic Solanke then, guys. We had a poll asking what he should do this January window. Move to Arsenal, move to Spurs, or stay at Bournemouth. Stay at Bournemouth was the verdict with a whopping 64% of the vote. Do you find that surprising or not, Ali?
Oh, absolutely. Was the question put, what should Dominic Solanke do?
What should he do?
Oh, move.
You think?
Oh, all day. All day.
Well, from his perspective, you're looking at it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I look at Dominic Solanke and I think right now he's in an unbelievably rich vein of form. That might not last, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, he might not get another opportunity to move to a Tottenham or move to an Arsenal. If he gets the opportunity to move to a club like that, for me, it is an absolute no-brainer. He has to move.
Wow, Alan, is he good enough to play for a top 6 club in your opinion?
Well, I don't think he's done enough personally, to warrant that. This spell has been a great spell, but I've had strikers in the past who've had great spells in the Premier League. Marlon Harewood got 16 goals for me. I don't think he was ever going to get to a top club. Bobby Zamora or people like that. So I can't see it, but as Ali says, if there was a bid for him, he would want to go. But the ownership of Bournemouth is quite strong. I think they're financially very stable. So I think that would be a difficult one for anyone to prize him out of there.
Yeah, it's a good headache to have, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Really. And you mentioned, are Spurs interested in Jota as well, did you say there?
Yeah, this is a player who played under Ange Postecoglou to good effect over in Scotland, went to Saudi Arabia, very quickly decided he didn't want to be in Saudi Arabia, which is a little bit of a theme into this window. And I think that could be a relatively simple deal for Spurs to do and would obviously strengthen them at the top of the pitch.
The one thing I would say about him, if Spurs could get him to play and Ange could get him to play the exact way he did with Celtic, he was a good watch with Celtic, talented, wide player, chipped in with a good few goals and could get by people. If he could get that same player who clearly hasn't had to offer whatever he's in Saudi Arabia, I think he's worth a punt, yeah.
Okay, time now for our 90-second roundup. Let's cram in as many as we can from across the Premier League. Crookie, your time starts now.
Bobby Firmino, cult hero at Liverpool, keen to leave Saudi Arabia. Fulham have been mentioned to me as a possible destination. Nottingham Forest rumoured as well.
Oh, Firmino to either Nottingham Forest or Fulham. Alan, thoughts?
Absolutely, yeah. You're taking him. I mean, this is a top player. He links the game, and scores goals. There's not many strikers who can do both.
Yeah. Crookie, another one.
Jesse Lingard has been without a club since leaving Nottingham Forest at the end of last season. Everton, we understand, have shown a bit of interest.
Hey, Jesse Lingard. Ali, thoughts?
Interesting is the best way I could put it. I mean, careers come to a standstill, similar to Dele Alli. Is he young enough? Yeah. Can he still got a lot to prove? Yes. It's a gamble.
Another one, Crookie.
Ben Brereton Diaz scored loads of goals in the Championship for Blackburn, got that move to Villarreal, hasn't scored a single goal for them. He's off to Sheffield United.
Oh, not a single goal for Villarreal, but could be linked to Sheffield United. Alan, thoughts?
I tried to take him on loan, actually, when I was at ADO Den Haag. So a player I know very, very well. Good take for me, especially down where Sheffield United are.
OK, another one, Crookie.
Kasper Schmeichel, Premier League winner with Leicester, FA Cup winner as well. 37 years old now, wants to come back to the Premier League, I'm told. Lots of clubs looking for goalkeepers.
Oh, he wants to come back. 10 seconds, Ali. Kasper Schmeichel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the age, less of a problem, obviously, with goalkeepers. Great track record. Don't have a problem with him coming back at all.
Okay, there we go. I think we bang right on the money. Well done, guys. Look at that. Well done, Crookie. Well done, Crookie. 90-second round up there. Okay, now before we give the rumour wheel another spin, one of the things that I love hearing about as a football fan is about transfers that never happened or stories of how deals have unfolded in the last few minutes of the window. Alan, you must have really wanted a player but not quite got them signed off, not got it over the line. Maybe the fax machine packed up. Or who is the best player that you've ever signed as well on the flip side?
Well, I mean, there's obviously loads of players that you go in for and you never kind of get across the line for financial reasons, or the player won't come or the club won't come. But, you know, in terms of deals done in January, probably the best one I done in January was Mr. Sissoko, who come into Newcastle when we were struggling and dug us out of a hole, really. His energy, up and down the pitch, scored a couple of goals on his debut, I think, against Chelsea. He was an outstanding player, but, you know, the other player that sticks in my mind, again, not a particularly great big name, but Fonte, I took him to Southampton.
Okay,
I'd left. I had a fallout with the ownership there, but he took them through 3-4 divisions, you know, and then won the European Championship.
Nice. And you know what? I hate to bring this up, Alan, but you've lost a few names in January as well. Big names.
Yeah, that's been my bigger problem. I lost Jermaine Defoe at West Ham. I lost Andy Carroll and Demba Ba, but Andy Carroll was the worst one because it was on I think the last day was on a Monday, and I was flying up from London. I'd been home to see my family, and I got just getting on the flight, and Derek Lambias rings me and says, you know, the bid's, you know, getting really close to 30 million. You know, when you get off the other end, we might be doing this deal. So being the football manager and sensible person that I am, when I was on the plane, I had a little gin and tonic and then decided that that's not enough because I didn't want to sell him, obviously. And I went back to Derek when I got off at the other end and said, I think if you get 35, you know, maybe there's a discussion. Thinking there's no way that Kenny Dalglish was going to buy, you know, spend 35 on Andy Carroll. So I went training, you know, popped around. It was all enjoyable. It was lovely. Come in and there was the bid, 35 million. I couldn't, you know, I was stunned. We were all stunned. It was the British transfer record at the time. And it was a massive problem for us. It left us really short. We had Leon Best, we had Shola Amiobi. But, you know, it really was going to be a battle now between now and the end of the season to stay in the division. And it was my first year at Newcastle. You can imagine how the fans felt. And the only option I had was, because the window closed, was to find Shefty Kuki, who hadn't had a club, which turned out to be a massive positive because he was such a brilliant character. He didn't play much and the fans were up in arms. Can you imagine? Exchanging Carroll for Shefty Kuki. But it turned out to be an asset for us off the pitch more so than on it.
Well, it's amazing now because we were talking about it beforehand. Believe it or not, I think in my final year at Kilmarnock as a player, Shefty Kuki came on trial to Kilmarnock. But you're absolutely right. What a character! What a great fella to have about the place.
No, but when he come into Newcastle, you can imagine for him it was like a dream come true. So he was running around like a nutcase, inspiring everybody and knocking everybody down. We loved him. Yeah, he was brilliant.
So it ended up being a positive in the end.
Positive.
But there's a silver lining all the time, isn't there? Right. Let's give the transfer rumour wheel one more spin. Let's start with Liverpool. Who are the names linked with moves to Anfield? Crookie.
Well, I can't believe we got this far into the programme and not mentioned Kylian Mbappe.
Of course.
Although I'm going to disclaim it now. There's more chance of Ali McCoist signing for Liverpool than I think there is Kylian Mbappe. He's only going to one club. We know it's going to be Real Madrid. We'd love to see him in the Premier League, but I don't think even Liverpool have the financial muscle to pull that off. In terms of other potential incomings, Hwang Hee-chan, who's had a brilliant season for Wolverhampton Wanderers, has been mentioned. I think they're going to be one of many clubs looking at Michael Elise, who we spoke about earlier. For me, they're probably still a little bit light at the heart of their defence. Virgil van Dijk, I think, is back to form this season, but hasn't really got a regular partner. The Bundesliga has been quite a fertile hunting ground for Liverpool in recent months. Edmund Tapsoba at Bayer Leverkusen is one maybe to keep an eye on, potentially for the summer as opposed to this window. Yeah,
well, as trivial as it may be, we've got to start with Kylian Mbappe. As I said, we've not even mentioned him yet. We ran a poll on talkSPORT's X account asking where will Mbappe be playing next season? PSG, Real Madrid or Liverpool, and Real Madrid topped the poll with nearly 60% of the vote, with Liverpool in second with just 22% of the vote. Alan, let me ask you, this will be most likely the summer deal, but does it scream Salah replacement to you?
For Jurgen Klopp, yes, for sure. But I don't think for Mbappe and his mum, who's doing the deal, for all accounts. I think looking at Real Madrid's transfer business, you know, they have Bellingham, you know, they look like they're starting to rebuild that team. And I think they're just waiting for the boy to turn up. Yeah. And then Real Madrid will be back at the top of the tree with everyone, you know, saying, you know, they're the team to beat. And I think they will be.
Yeah, perhaps more wishful thinking, Mbappe to Liverpool, Ali. What do you think?
I mean, I might possibly be wrong, but I cannot see that move to
I think the
Liverpool.
link is all about the relationship Klopp had with him, didn't
Yeah.
he? They almost done a transfer with him, and they got on well. And I think there's too much been said about that. That isn't business. That our business is done, liking players and loving each other and respecting each other. You know, it's about the deal.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Madrid would.
I think Crookie makes a point. I think a natural partner for Van Dijk at centre back. I mean, Matip I like, and Konaté's been in there. Gomez has played there, but they've never really had a solid defensive partnership at centre back. And I think they could strengthen.
Graham
there.
Roberts.
That's the one.
That'd be
That's
it.
the one.
He
That'll
could do
clinch
it.
Crookie, are you surprised that Liverpool haven't been linked with more names in this window?
Not overly. I think Jurgen Klopp obviously had that big midfield rebuild in the summer. I think probably that's come to fruition maybe even earlier than he anticipated, the fact they're top of the table and genuine title contenders after missing out on the Champions League last season. So I think he's fairly settled. Again, they're going to lose Salah for the duration of the AFCON.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see where their goals come from. I think Nunez has a lot of attributes, but at the moment putting the ball in the back of the net isn't one of them. But you've got Diaz, you've got Jota. I think Szoboszlai has been one of the signings of the season in midfield as well, brings that creativity. So I think Jurgen Klopp is pretty happy with his lot at this moment in time.
They got no worries with goals, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
With Salah even going just for a month or
Yeah.
6 weeks, no problem. They got enough goals in that team. The centre half is the position for sure if he could strengthen that. But he's also had the boost of those two young players coming through in midfield who have done brilliant for him. And you know, so he's very, very strong everywhere offensively for me. It's just the back maybe needs a little bit more cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we've got to go over to the big spenders, Chelsea. Who is on their radar in January, Crookie?
Well, I'm not sure they're particularly flush for cash. They spent £1 billion in the last 3 transfer windows. Haven't got an awful lot to show for it, it has to be said. I think Mauricio Pochettino, if he could, would love to sign a number 9. I think it's been a position that they're seriously lacking at this point. Obviously, we know that Osimhen was their top target. He signed the new contract at Napoli, albeit with a release clause, but I don't see that release clause being triggered this side of the summer. Who else do you get as a number 9? We've spoken about it with regard to Arsenal. Dominic Solanke is an ex-Chelsea player. They say never go back, and certainly they're not a club that, as far as I'm aware, have shown any interest in him. Ivan Toney, I'm told, is the wrong side of 25 for Chelsea, which seems a little bit baffling, but their whole model is built around signing players with sell-on value, which obviously wasn't necessarily the way under Roman Abramovich. So if they sign anybody, maybe it might be a centre-half, John Clare Todibo. Again, they're part of that conversation, but we've alluded to it already, Nice not wanting to let him go. And I think that the story of this window, as far as Chelsea are concerned, it's building already, and I think it will continue right until 11 o'clock on deadline day. Conor Gallagher, will anybody put down the £50 million they want to sell him? And if they did sell him, I think there'd be uproar, not just in the dressing room, but in the terraces as well.
See, an interesting one looking at Chelsea. I think Chelsea, similar to Arsenal and United in the respect that I think need an out-and-out centre-forward. But I think I liken Chelsea a wee bit to Manchester United, and maybe in this particular window. I think both clubs are at a transitional stage where they probably need to get players out, and a few of them out. I think Chelsea, looking at Chelsea just now, similar to Manchester United in the respect that I think they need 4 or 5 players in the team that are going to dramatically change them.
Yeah.
So I don't see it being a massive window for Chelsea. Same as I don't really see it for a massive window for Manchester United. In fact, I think I could see a few going the other way.
If you look at the money they've spent, Chelsea, and we've mentioned £1 billion already, how many of those players have really come in and justified the price tag? You could argue only Cole Palmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's probably factually correct. And we were talking before we come on here. I've been so disappointed. You're talking about getting potentially or the possibility of losing Conor Gallagher.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been really disappointed in Caicedo and Fernandes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've seen them 2 or 3 times this season. And I need to be honest with you, I'm looking for a wee bit more for £250 million. You know, I mean...
Can I get a line on Pochettino, Alan? How would you say that his spell so far at Chelsea's been?
Well, I would say one thing, just going on about Gallagher, that I think Poch has made a statement, which I would have done if I was him as manager. He's made a statement to upstairs that he doesn't want him to go because he made him captain. Mm-hmm. So, and he's not old. He's got Silva there. He's got some natural leaders, you know. So why would he do that? That was a message to the ownership. He's staying here because he has been very, very good for Chelsea. And I agree with Ali. The other midfield players there have disappointed. So there's a big job for Poch there. He knows that. I think he's looking at it probably now. He's got 6 or 7 regulars in that team. You can sort of start naming the Chelsea team. But there's like 8 or 9 other names that they've brought in that don't get anywhere near it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And Poch, if I was the manager there, and I'm sure this is Poch's view, he wants to get rid of, I would suggest 10 players.
Yes.
Yeah.
As much as that. Whether they can with the finances that they have available.
Crookie, do you think Gallagher's good enough to play for Chelsea?
Well, it depends where we see Chelsea as a football club at this moment in time. If you look back to their glory days of the not too distant past, would he get into a Chelsea team with the likes of Didier Drogba and John Terry and Frank Lampard? I don't think so.
But you could say that about Arsenal. How would they get an Arsenal's team of Petit,
Yeah, I agree.
Vieira and Henry and
But the difference,
and
look,
Liverpool's
Manchester
great
United.
team. So you can't talk like that. Gallagher, with 100%, I'm telling you, is good enough for Chelsea in the current.
good enough to get them back in the top 4? Good
I
enough to
think
get them
so.
challenging for
I
titles
personally,
again?
I think he is because he scores goals. I think he's got better. He's gone back a position a little bit, and I think he's thriving. I think there's nothing. I think that boy's future is all ahead of him, and I think he'll play for England too.
Yeah, time will tell. It certainly splits people down the middle, though, doesn't it? Also, just a quick word on Chelsea. And Nkunku coming back, he's not really played any football this season. That basically feels like, I hate the cliche, but that
New
basically
player.
feels, yeah,
I
like a
know.
new player in January, doesn't it?
I think so.
I'm just, they haven't got, many times we've saying about clubs, they haven't got an out-and-out number 9. You look
Yeah.
at Jackson,
Yeah, it's
you know,
hard.
Brozia's been injured and all, you know, and Nkunku come back. I think he might be actually the better one, but he might not be the answer, if you know what I mean. He might be the best one, not the best one of a bad bunch by any stretch of imagination, but he might be the best option at this moment in time. But if you're asking me, is he the real deal as a centre-forward for Chelsea moving forward? Probably not.
No, in his first full game, I was there, and I didn't see enough.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously he's got a lot of time to make up because he's missed a lot of football. But you know, the position of striker in the Premier League to get you 20 goals is very, very rare.
Yeah.
You know, but if you can get a goal, if you can get a goal scorer who can get you 15,
Yeah.
and you're chipping in from elsewhere, that's probably where you're going to aim for, realistically. And if you get one who can get 20, 25,
You're absolutely spot
You've
on
won the
because
polls.
unfortunately for centre forwards in the top flight in England right now, no matter what happens is they'll be judged and gauged on Harry Kane and Haaland's goals probably.
Yeah.
You know, and
Salah.
yeah, and these guys are there.
Yeah.
You know, they're top of the tree. So and that's where they're going to be judged. The next centre forward is going to be judged.
The only one I think guarantees it is the boy at Napoli.
Yeah,
And
I
hence
agree.
the new contract.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, and
I agree.
And I
That'd be
think
big money.
he's the one.
Yeah.
All the top clubs will be like, he's the
Yeah,
one.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of number 9s, we spoke about Bobby Firmino earlier. I mean, linked to Forest, linked to Fulham, but what about Chelsea? What about Spurs? What about Arsenal? How come they're not taking a look at him, Crookie?
It's a brilliant point, and actually I raised the question with some Arsenal supporting friends of mine. Surely you take Bobby Firmino as that sort of focal point in attack. I think he's going to get more goals than Eddie Nketiah. Liverpool fans absolutely adore him, but yeah, at the moment the big clubs seem to be pretty quiet on that front.
Yeah, can you guys see that one working
Oh, I
out?
think he's a great signing for most teams. I'm not sure he's Arsenal's priority. I think he's a terrific player. I really, really do. If I'm Fulham or Forest, biting your hand off to get him. But is he the long-term, you know, prospect for Arsenal to score goals, to take them to the next level? I'm not so sure as good a player as he is.
Alan?
Not for me, for Arsenal. They got Jesus there, and you know that's the same role really. So I don't see that. But you know, he is a top player and a top character. You know, a moral compass and everything that he's got going is great. You know, you're going to bring him in. You know, everyone's going to love him, and the fans as well. He's a good signing. I mean, I think Newcastle would be a nice spot for him.
Yeah,
They
Newcastle,
would-
good shout.
They could be interested.
Chelsea? Over
Chelsea?
Jackson?
I can't see Chelsea doing business with it. They got to play the two guys, haven't they? They got to see them two if they can do it, because otherwise they got to correct it in the summer. So I can't see him taking any striker. I think Chelsea will run with the two that they got.
What about Newcastle with Callum Wilson facing a bit of a spell on the sidelines?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Newcastle.
another one out there as well, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, we've just got enough time now for one last 90-second roundup. Crookie, your time starts now.
Well, Pards has mentioned a moral compass. What about Mason Greenwood? On loan at Tafe, Manchester United still not planning to bring him back. Barcelona and Real Madrid have both been watching him.
Oh, Barca and Madrid interested in Greenwood. Alan, thoughts?
Well, I'm going by Alex Ferguson, who said like this was an outstanding generational talent. I think he called him. So he obviously had talent. He's probably not coming back to the Premier League because of the issues he's had here. So a big move to one of those clubs wouldn't surprise me.
Crookie?
Max Kilman, Wolves captain, wanted by Napoli in the summer, signed a big new contract. West Ham, I'm told, keeping him on their radar.
Oh, Kilman to West Ham.
That would make sense. I know Moyes is a fan. Kerr's away. Kilman scored at the weekend. That would make sense. That would be a good move.
Yeah, good move. Crookie, another one?
Keen to get Pards' view on this one as well. Danny Ings wants to leave at West Ham. I think he's a player who a lot of clubs down at the bottom of the table would be interested in. Maybe keep an eye on Wolves for him as well.
Ings to Wolves. Alan?
I can see that because, you know, he has that energy. He's going to give he's going to bring some sort of like energy to your team. Is he going to get the goals? I think he's only got a couple of goals at West Ham, so that's the question mark there.
Another one, Crookie?
Wolverhampton Wanderers, a theme of this section. Pedro Neto, who we know Mikel Arteta has certainly been an admirer of in the past. Could he be the answer for Arsenal?
Neto to Arsenal, Ali, 10 seconds?
No. Great player. He's not what they need. I think they've got a lot of kind of similar players to Neto. Is he a good player? Yes. Can he move to a bigger club? Yes. Will it be Arsenal? No.
Oh, and there go the lights. Well done, Ali. Professional as ever.
Is that timing all right there?
Yeah, perfectly done. But you know what? I have to say, and I know I'm kind of bending the rules here a bit, but let's just expand a little bit on Neto there because he is a bright spark within Wolves. What do you think of him, Alan? Do you think he can move somewhere bigger and better?
Well, you know, that goal he got against Manchester City and the pace that he has, you know, in the speed off the spot means that he can play at a top club. There's no doubt about that. The injury record is a problem, so you'd be looking at that, I'm sure. If you're Wolves, I would definitely keep hold of him until the summer because I think his value is only going one way. I think it's going to go up. So why sell him now? So I can't see him moving in January. I think he's a summer buy.
What kind of price are we looking at there, by the way, Crookie? Have you been given any indication there at all? Or?
Well, Pards has mentioned the injury record, so I think that would probably devalue the player. But certainly when they were linked this time last year and the price quoted was 35 million, I was told from sources close to Wolves it would take a lot more than that. So again, I think they probably see him as a £50 million player. We know that Wolves have had their own financial issues. That's why Julian Lopetegui decided to leave and Gary O'Neill came in because there wasn't any money to spend. So I think they are one of those clubs, Wolves, and this is where Kilman's interesting as well. If a big money offer did come in, I think financially they have to seriously consider it.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit cheeky again. Kilman, that is an interesting move as well because he's the Wolves captain, isn't he? So who was it you said that was interesting?
West Ham. They'd had an interest before. Kera, as Ali mentioned, is moving on. Naeth Aged possibly could be available for transfer as well, but I think they want a replacement in. So that's one that could rumble on.
Right, that's all we have time for. Thanks to Alan, Ali and Alex. And thanks to you guys for watching the January window with talkSPORT and talkSPORT Bet. For all of those transfer specials and more, head to www.talksportbet.com, 18+, begambleaware.org, and please gamble responsibly. Bye for now.